Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Bedtime Stories with Amuraz. That's me. That's me. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys have recovered after having a fantastic Eid. So Eid Mubarak to everyone. I hope you had lots of sweets, lots of lovely presents, and you got to spend time with, well, family because we were in lockdown, so probably didn't see many friends. But I hope you had a good time, and I hope you managed to have a lot of good treats. Today's episode is called The Sand and the Stone. The Sand and the Stone. And it's a very important message, and one that we have to really remember when we grow up and when we have friends and when we talk with friends and when we interact with friends. So, what does the story go like? Well, there's two friends, Ibrahim and Ismail. Ibrahim and Ismail. Now, these two friends were in a little bit of a predicament. Why were they in a predicament? They were stuck. They were stuck in the middle of a desert, right? You know what desert is, right? Sand everywhere. It's very hot. There's no shade, and you're sweating, and you are panting, and you're tired. And if you're in the middle of nowhere, you think you're stuck, and you're never going to leave. You're never going to leave. So Ibrahim and Ismail, they were absolutely devastated because they lost their parents, and now they're in the middle of the desert. They can see no one, just miles and miles of sand and cacti, the spiky plants which you can only find in deserts, and lizards and snakes just crawling around, and they were frightened because they were lost and they couldn't see their parents anywhere. Anyway, so Ibrahim and Ismail, they started walking. They started walking slowly through the desert because the heat was so much and they were so tired and they were thirsty. And eventually they started arguing because when you're hungry, what happens when you're hungry? When you're hungry, you get irritated, right? You get very cranky and you're like, oh. Well, these guys started getting very, very irritated and they started fighting. They started arguing and shouting. What happened? In that argument, in the heat of it, Ismail hit Ibrahim across the face. He went, whoosh, and he hit Ibrahim across the face. Can you believe it? Ismail hit Ibrahim across the face. That's a big thing, right? You don't hit anyone. And Ismail did that. What did Ibrahim do? He was so upset. He was so shocked that how can my best friend Ismail hit me? How can he hit me? So what did he do? He went and he wrote in the sand, "Today my best friend Ismail hit me on the face." Okay. Anyway, they carried on, and now they weren't talking. They weren't talking at all. Have you ever had an argument with that friend? Have you ever had have you ever had a little fight with a friend? You don't talk, right? You should try and make things up. But anyway, they didn't want to talk. They didn't want to talk at all, and they just kept walking and walking. Eventually, they came to an oasis. Do you guys know what an oasis is? An oasis is like a green area in the middle of a desert, where for some reason there's water, and it's like a miracle because there's fresh, beautiful, clean water, there's plants and vegetation, and they were so happy. Ismail and Ibrahim, they jumped. And what happened? Ibrahim straight away took off his clothes and he jumped into the water. He just jumped and he started swimming. Whereas Ismail, he stood and he started drinking water from the side. Now remember what happened earlier. Ismail hit Ibrahim, didn't he? Well, Ibrahim jumped into the water and he was swimming. But then all of a sudden he got a cramp in his leg and he's like, ah! And then something happened. He noticed that he's sinking. He tried to swim up. He tried to swim, but he couldn't. And he was sinking. And so he shouted, he said, "Ismail, I'm drowning, I'm drowning." So Ismail quickly got out, he jumped in and he saved Ibrahim's life. He jumped in and he grabbed Ibrahim and he brought him out of the water. And Ibrahim was so happy. He was so happy that he was thankful. And what did Ibrahim do? He went up to a rock. He went up to a stone, right? A big piece of stone. And in there, he took a piece of stick and he carved in. He said, "Today, my friend Ismail saved my life." And then Ismail, he was looking at this and he said, "Why are you doing this?" He said to Ibrahim, "I saw you when I hit you." Ismail said to Ibrahim, "When I hit you on the face, you wrote it in sand. And now when I saved your life, you wrote it in stone." And you know what Ibrahim said? He said, "When your friend does something bad to you, you should make it as if it's written in sand, because when the wind blows, the writing disappears, doesn't it? So you should forgive them. You should forgive them so that it's easily forgiven. And when somebody does something nice for you, write it in stone so that it never disappears. No matter how much wind there is, that writing will always be there on that stone. And this was a lesson. This was a lesson for all of us. If somebody does something to us, if somebody harms us or says something bad to us, we should forgive them. We should write that on, temporarily. We just write it on sand so that it gets washed away. And then we never think about it again. We don't, there's no record of it anymore. That's it. We've forgiven them. But when someone does something nice, remember it. Remember it forever. Remember all the good things that people do for you. And even then, if they haven't done good things, learn to forgive. This is the main moral of the story, is that always forgive people and don't hang on to things. Let it blow away in the wind like the sand. So whenever somebody does something bad, don't hold a grudge. Grudges aren't good. They weigh your heart down, right? And you're always thinking about it. And then people start arguing, and then people don't become friends anymore. And then what happens is everyone splits up. Everyone does their own thing. But Islam and being a good Muslim is about being a good person in your heart and forgiving others. Because if you forgive others, then you know what will happen? Allah will forgive us on the Day of Judgment. So remember, write everyone's bad things that they do to you in sand so it gets washed away. But everything good that they do, write it in stone. And never forget it. And always be kind to people. I hope that made sense. And I hope you guys continue to have a wonderful week. And that's enough from Amuraz in this week's episode of Bedtime Stories. Salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa la insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum.